Hello, everyone. Welcome to Say It.
Hey everyone, so happy you are here with us today. I am Mike.
And I am Sarah. So happy you are joining us today.
Sarah, something a friend told me this week has been stuck in my head ever since.
What happened?
She was invited to a colleague's birthday dinner. Before going, she asked the host whether she needed to bring a gift. The host said, "You mustn't bring a gift."
So she arrived with nothing?
She arrived with nothing, and the host was offended.
Because the host meant you don't need to, not you are not allowed to.
Two completely different messages, same sentence, and that misunderstanding ruined the evening.
Must, have to, should. 3 words every learner uses every day. And the difference between them is not just grammar, it is meaning. The wrong word sends the completely wrong message.
By the end of this episode, you will know exactly which word to use, when to use it, and why the difference matters.
But before we start, please like and subscribe to Say It. Every new like and subscriber motivates us to prepare more episodes for you.
Now let us get into it.
Must, have to, and should. All 3 are about obligation. All 3 answer the same question. Do I need to do this?
But they give very different answers.
3 different answers about how strong the obligation is and where it comes from.
What do you mean where it comes from?
Think about it this way. Must comes from inside, from the speaker's own conviction, judgment, or authority. I decide this is necessary.
Have to comes from outside, from rules, laws, other people, or circumstances. Something beyond the speaker says this is necessary.
And should is the mildest of the 3. Not a rule, not a requirement, just the speaker's opinion. It would be a good idea.
So the same situation can use all 3 and mean something completely different each time.
Exactly. You must eat your vegetables. That is a parent speaking. Their authority, their conviction, internal.
You have to eat vegetables at school. The school rule says so. External.
You should eat vegetables. It would be good for you. Just advice.
Same topic, same message on the surface, 3 completely different sources of obligation.
And that source is everything. Because when you choose the wrong word, like our friend's host did, the message changes completely.
So the one-line summary for each word.
Must, I think you need to do this. Have to, something outside of us says you need to do this. Should, it would be a good idea.
3 strengths, 3 sources, 1 question. Do I need to do this?
And everything in this episode flows from that one idea.
So let us start with must, the strongest of the 3 and the one with the most surprises.
Must expresses strong obligation that comes from the speaker, their own conviction, authority, or personal feeling, not a rule from outside, a decision from inside.
I must call my mother today.
Nobody told you to. No rule requires it. You feel it is necessary. That feeling comes from you. Must.
I must try to exercise more. I must remember to book those tickets.
All internal, all the speaker's own conviction.
And must also appears on signs and formal notices. All passengers must fasten their seatbelts. Visitors must sign in at reception. That looks external.
It is external in source, but the register is formal and written. Must sounds official and direct, so formal notices prefer must regardless of where the obligation comes from.
Now, the grammar. Must is a true modal verb. No S for third person.
She must go. Never she musts go. And always the base verb after must. Never to plus verb.
You must leave. Never you must to leave.
And must for strong recommendations, enthusiasm.
You must see this film. It is incredible. You must visit Paris if you get the chance.
That is not obligation. That is, this is so good, I feel strongly that you should experience it.
Now, the second sentence from our opening, she should finish this report. Is that the same as she must finish this report?
Completely different. Should is mild. It would be a good idea, but it is her choice. Must is strong. I am the authority here. This is required. The strength difference is enormous.
And must has one critical limitation. It only exists in the present.
No past form, no future form. For the past, I had to go to the doctor yesterday. For the future, I will have to finish this tomorrow. Must hands over to have to the moment you leave the present.
And one more use of must worth knowing, a completely different meaning.
Deduction, drawing a logical conclusion from evidence. You must be tired. You have been working all day. That must be her house. I can see her car outside.
That is not obligation. That is, I am almost certain this is true based on what I can see.
And this use of must gets a full episode of its own very soon. For today, just know it exists and that context tells you which meaning is intended.
Must, strong internal obligation. No S, no to, no past or future form. And a second meaning, deduction, coming in a future episode.
Now, have to. Same strength as must, but the source is completely different.
Have to comes from outside, rules, laws, other people, circumstances, not the speaker's decision. Something beyond them requires it.
You have to drive on the left in England. That is the law, not the speaker's opinion.
She has to wear a uniform at work. The company rule says so.
I have to be at the airport by 8. My flight requires it, not my choice.
Every one of those an outside force creating the obligation.
Now, here is the grammar surprise. Must and should are true modal verbs. Have to is not. It behaves like a regular verb, and that changes everything.
How so?
3 differences. First, it changes for he and she. She has to go, not she have to go.
Second, questions need do or does. Do you have to go? Does she have to attend? Not have you to go? That is wrong.
Third, negatives need don't or doesn't. I don't have to go. She doesn't have to attend. We'll come back to what that means because the meaning of don't have to is one of the most important things in this whole episode.
And have to works in all tenses, which must cannot do.
Present, I have to finish this. Past, I had to cancel the meeting yesterday. Future, I will have to work late next week.
Must hands over to have to completely in the past and future.
And in informal spoken English, especially British, have got to replaces have to. I've got to go. She's got to be there by 8. Same meaning as have to, just more casual.
And even more informal, gotta. I gotta go. You gotta try this. We will come back to gotta later when we talk about connected speech.
Have to, strong external obligation, needs do and does, changes to has to for he and she, works in all tenses, and have got to and gotta are the casual spoken equivalents. And now the mildest of the 3, should.
Should does not force anyone to do anything. It is the speaker's opinion, what they think would be a good idea, a recommendation, not a rule.
You should drink more water. That is advice. Nobody is required to do it.
You should see a doctor about that cough. He should apologize for what he said.
All advice, all the speaker's opinion. The listener has a choice.
And like must, should is a true modal. No S for third person. No to after it.
She should go. Never she shoulds go. You should call. Never you should to call.
Now, should also expresses mild duty, the right thing to do socially or morally.
Students should arrive on time for class. Everyone should respect the law. These are not hard rules, they are social expectations, weaker than must or have to.
And there is one use of should that most learners never learn: expectation.
When something is logically expected to happen based on plans or normal circumstances, should.
The package should arrive tomorrow. She should be home by now. The meeting should finish by 5.
Not obligation, not advice. Just, if everything goes normally, this is what I expect. The speaker is not asking anyone to do anything.
And should is the natural word for asking what someone thinks is the right thing to do.
Should I call her? Should we bring anything? What should I wear to the interview?
The same word: advice, duty, expectation, asking for guidance. All mild, all the speaker's opinion, never a strong requirement.
And the contrast that locks the three together.
You must finish this by tomorrow. Strong. I require it.
You have to finish this by tomorrow. Strong, the deadline requires it.
You should finish this by tomorrow. Mild. It would be a good idea.
Same sentence, 3 completely different messages depending on one word.
Should. Mild obligation, advice, and expectation. No S, no to. Not a requirement, a recommendation.
Now, the most important part of this entire episode, and the mistake that caused our friends' difficult evening.
Mustn't and don't have to.
In positive sentences, must and have to are both strong, similar meaning. But in negative sentences, they become complete opposites, completely different meanings.
That is the surprise.
Mustn't means forbidden. The action is not allowed. It is necessary that you do not do it.
You mustn't smoke in this area. It is forbidden, not allowed.
You mustn't drive through a red light. Forbidden, no choice.
You mustn't tell anyone about this. You are not allowed to tell anyone.
You don't have to come to the party. Not necessary, but you can if you want.
I don't have to get up early tomorrow. No obligation. I can choose.
You don't have to bring a gift. No requirement. Your choice entirely.
One says, do not do this. The other says, you are completely free. Same negative structure, completely opposite meanings.
So back to the host, mustn't bring a gift. That means bringing a gift is forbidden.
But the host meant bringing a gift is not necessary. The correct sentence was, you don't have to bring a gift.
One word changed the entire message and ruined the evening.
Now, the test to choose between them. One question: is the action forbidden, not allowed, or is it simply not required?
Forbidden, mustn't.
Free choice, don't have to.
You mustn't park here. Forbidden, you will get a fine.
You don't have to park here. Not necessary. Park here or somewhere else.
You mustn't be late. Being late is not acceptable.
You don't have to stay late. Staying is optional. Leave whenever you want.
And shouldn't sits between them.
You shouldn't smoke so much. Not advisable. A bad idea, but not forbidden.
So the 3 negatives on one line: mustn't, forbidden, no choice; don't have to, not necessary, free choice; shouldn't, not a good idea, but allowed.
3 negative forms, 3 completely different messages, and confusing any one of them causes exactly the kind of misunderstanding our friend experienced.
So the picture is complete. Must and have to, both strong, different sources; should, mild advice; and in the negative, mustn't means forbidden; don't have to means free choice; shouldn't means not advisable. Now, what happens when we move into the past?
Must has no past form. We established that. So both must and have to use the same past form.
Had to, for both.
I had to work late last night. Past obligation.
Could have been must or have to in the present. In the past, both become had to.
We had to cancel the meeting. Circumstances forced it. Had to.
And the other past forms,
Don't have to becomes didn't have to. I didn't have to pay. It was free. No obligation in the past.
mustn't becomes wasn't or weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to use phones in class. Forbidden in the past.
And should becomes should have plus the past participle. You should have called me. The right thing that did not happen. We covered this fully in episode 9.
So in the past, must and have to both disappear into had to. The internal and external distinction is gone.
Now, one more expression worth knowing. Had better. It sits between should and must on the strength spectrum.
Stronger than should, not as absolute as must, but it carries a warning. If you don't do this, something bad will happen.
You'd better call him now or he'll be angry.
Strong advice, implied consequence. The d is always contracted in natural speech. You'd better, I'd better, she'd better.
I'd better leave now or I'll miss the train. You'd better not do that again.
And despite the word had, it refers to the present or immediate future, not the past.
Had to, past obligation. Had better, strong advice with an implied consequence.
Past forms, must and have to, both become had to. Should becomes should have, and had better, strong advice with an implied consequence.
Now, something that makes a real difference to listening comprehension. What these words actually sound like in real spoken English.
Because what learners hear in films, podcasts, and conversation is often very different from what they read in a textbook.
Have to in natural, fast speech becomes have to. We have to be there by 5. Same meaning, just how native speakers actually say it.
Has to becomes has to. She has to leave early.
Had to becomes hadda. I hadda cancel the whole thing.
And have got to, which we mentioned previously, reduces to gotta. I gotta go. You gotta try this.
These are not mistakes. They are not bad English. They are simply how have to sounds when people speak at natural speed.
And shoulda reduces to shoulda. I shoulda called you. We shoulda left earlier.
So the next time you hear have to, has to, hadda, gotta, or shoulda, you will know exactly what structure is behind it.
Now, one important difference between British and American English.
In American English, must for obligation is very rare in casual conversation. It sounds theatrical, overly formal. Americans use have to, need to, or gotta for virtually all everyday obligation.
So an American would say, I have to go, not I must go. I gotta finish this, not I must finish this.
American English primarily uses must for deduction. You must be tired, that must be her, not for everyday obligation.
British English uses must for both obligation and deduction in spoken English.
The practical result in casual conversation, especially with Americans, have to is almost always the safer choice.
And the register picture in one line, must, in writing, very formal, signs and notices, must, in speech, personal conviction, British English, have to, neutral, works everywhere, should, neutral, works everywhere, gotta, very informal, casual conversation only.
Now, the mistakes. 4 sentences that go wrong constantly. 2 of them we have already fixed during this episode.
Starting with the one from our opening story.
You mustn't bring a gift. Said when the speaker meant not necessary.
Mustn't means forbidden. Not necessary means don't have to. Completely opposite meanings.
You don't have to bring a gift. That is the correct sentence. Not required. Your choice.
Mistake number 2. You must to leave now.
Must is a true modal, never followed by to. Always the base verb directly after must.
You must leave now. No to. Ever.
Same error with should. You should to see a doctor. Wrong. You should see a doctor. Right. No to after any true modal verb.
Mistake number 3. Yesterday, I must go to the hospital.
Must has no past form. For past obligation, always had to.
Yesterday, I had to go to the hospital. Had to covers both must and have to in the past.
And the future? I must finish this. Wrong. I will have to finish this. Right. Have to takes over from must in both past and future.
Mistake number 4. Have you to work tomorrow?
Have to is not a true modal. It needs do or does to form questions.
Do you have to work tomorrow? Do is required. Always.
And the third person form. She have to go. Wrong. She has to go. Right. Have to changes for he, she, and it. Must and should never change.
4 mistakes, 4 fixes.
Mustn't when you mean don't have to, opposite meanings. Must to, never. No to after modals.
Must in the past or future use had to or will have to, and questions with have to always need do or does.
2 questions solve almost everything in this topic. Is the obligation strong? Must or have to? Is it just advice? Should. Is something forbidden? Mustn't. Is something simply not required? Don't have to.
And now let us hear all 3 working together in a real conversation.
The scenario. 2 colleagues. One has just started a new job. The other is giving advice about the first week. No grammar commentary, just 2 people talking.
Let us go.
So, first day tomorrow. How are you feeling?
Nervous, honestly. I don't really know what to expect.
You'll be fine. A few things worth knowing, though. You have to wear your ID badge at all times. Security is very strict there.
Right. And what about parking?
You don't have to park in the main car park. There's a free street behind the building, but you mustn't park in the reserved spaces near the entrance. Those are for senior management only.
Got it. What about dress code?
Smart casual most days. You should wear something professional for the first week, though. First impressions matter.
Good advice. What about meetings?
You mustn't use your personal phone during meetings. The director is very strict about that. And you'd better memorize the security code before you arrive, or you won't get through the door.
Good to know. Anything else?
You don't have to bring your own equipment. They provide everything. And you should introduce yourself to the team on the first morning. Don't wait for someone to do it for you.
Should I prepare anything in advance?
You don't have to, but you should read through the company handbook tonight. It won't take long, and it'll help you feel more confident tomorrow.
I had to do something similar at my last job. Read 3 documents before the first day.
This one is just 1 document. You've got to love a shorter onboarding process.
Absolutely. The meeting should finish by 5 tomorrow as well, so at least you won't have a late first day.
Perfect. You're going to be fine.
Let us pause there.
5 moments worth picking out. You have to wear your ID badge. Have to. External obligation. The company rule requires it.
You mustn't park in the reserved spaces. Mustn't. Forbidden. Not allowed under any circumstances.
You don't have to park in the main car park. Don't have to. Not necessary. Free choice.
You'd better memorize the security code. Had better. Strong advice with an implied consequence. If you don't, you won't get through the door.
And you should introduce yourself. Should. Mild advice. A good idea. But the choice is yours.
5 different expressions. 5 different strengths. And in that whole conversation, did it feel like grammar?
Not at all. It felt like 2 colleagues talking before a first day.
Because that is exactly what it was. The words carry the meaning. Strong obligation, free choice, forbidden, strong advice, mild suggestion. all from the same 3 words and their forms.
Must, have to, should. 3 words. Every level of obligation covered.
And that is exactly what today was about. 3 words, 1 question. Do I need to do this? 3 very different answers.
So, let us lock it in fast.
Must, strong obligation from inside, the speaker's own conviction or authority. No S, no to, no past or future form.
Have to. Strong obligation from outside. Rules, laws, circumstances. Needs do and does changes to has to, works in all tenses.
Should, mild, advice, expectation, recommendation, not a requirement, the speaker's opinion only.
The critical contrast. Mustn't means forbidden. Don't have to means not necessary. Completely opposite meanings. Confuse them and you send the completely wrong message.
Shouldn't sits between them, not advisable but not forbidden.
Past forms. Must and have to both become had to. Should becomes should have. Had better, strong advice with an implied consequence, more urgent than should.
And in real spoken English, hafta, hasta, hadda, gotta, shoulda, all normal, all natural, all forms of have to and should in fast speech.
Now, your challenge.
Tell us in the comments, what is 1 rule you have to follow at work or at school? And is there something you don't have to do, something that is optional? Use have to, must, or don't have to in your answer.
We read every single one.
And if this episode helped you, please share it with one person who is learning English right now.
Subscribe to Say It so you never miss a new episode. Every new subscriber genuinely motivates us to keep making these for you.
We will see you in the next one. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.